Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to this first training workshop on environment, social, and governance compliance, the first module. This is the first training session on the ESG manual and toolkit, specifically for African mini-grids. And well, we're very pleased to welcome you, or to welcoming all of you over here. We'll do a first introduction before deep diving into the subject matters. So yeah, let me introduce myself. My name is Anjali Shankar. I'm from IED, Innovation Energy Development, which is an engineering firm specialized in rural electrification and also mini-grids. And I leave my colleague Ghislain to introduce himself. Ghislain, if you want to introduce yourself quickly. But you're on mute.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending this first training of four. My name is Ghislain Jalali. I am an environmental, social, and governance specialist, and I specialize especially in the World Bank's and International Finance Corporation standards.
Okay, so with this, let me just start with a quick introduction to the partner speakers and to the guidebook itself. And then the idea today is that we'll focus on certain subjects and take you through some of the toolkits. Yeah, so Ghislain, can you move forward a couple of slides, please? Yeah. Okay, so what is this whole exercise all about? I think maybe some of you already attended the webinar, so you may be well aware of what it's all about. The idea is to deep dive into a first training session for mini-grid practitioners addressing the specificities of the sector as regards environmental, social, and governance compliance. Why? Because we are in a context where mini-grids are central to closing the energy access gap in Africa. The idea also, I mean, and what everybody knows is that more and more developers are trying to develop clusters of projects and are seeking international finance. And the international finance community, of course, wants to see ESG compliance. So we wanted to make it as practical as possible for the mini-grid practitioners. So this has been written not for ESG experts, but for practitioners. The whole idea being to try and devise and propose an approach which is proportionate to project size, to the risks, environmental and social risks that they actually could entail. So aside from the guidebook, we have a sister series of documents, which are basically toolkits. And today, Ghislain will be presenting 3 of these toolkits. Well, we were selected to do this work as a team of experts combining mini-grid specialists and environmental, social, and governance specialists. And this is supported by the African Development Bank, the IFC, and the Alliance for Renewable Electrification. So with this very short introduction, let me give the floor to Gabrielle from the African Development Bank.
Yeah, thank you, Anjali, for this introduction. And yes, just very briefly, also a very warm welcome to today's first session of this training series. So my name is Gabrielle Pammersberg. I'm working for the Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa, which is a special fund administered by the African Development Bank. And this initiative has been funded by CEFA, especially through its dedicated technical assistance program, the Africa Mini-Grid Market Acceleration Program. So just to give you a little bit of background. So I'm working specifically on mini-grid investment. So CEFA is providing concessional funding as well as technical assistance to specifically support the private sector with their projects and with access to finance. And based on the consistent feedback from mini-grid developers across the continent, that they're facing this challenge of ESG
Did you see the email? Have you registered?
Sorry? Hello?
Yes, Gabriel, we can see you, and I think there's someone who forgot to close his microphone.
So yes, sorry. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so what did I say? So basically with this initiative, we wanted to address and to respond to the feedback from mini-grid developers with their challenges in ESG compliance. So as Anjali said, we have the pleasure working with UED Consult to help us develop this guidance manual and the toolkit to really support you as developers and practitioners to better understand ESG compliance standards, including AfDB's integrated safeguard system and the IFC Performance Standards, and how to incorporate good ESG practices in your operation. So I want to keep it very short. Just wanted to really welcome you to this training series, and I'm wishing you a very interesting, insightful, and interactive training. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabriel, for this very warm introduction. So to start this session, as all of you know, this is a series of 4 sessions. This specific session will focus on mini-grid realities, presenting the ESG compliance manual, and looking specifically into screening of projects, risk analysis, for site selection, and further into an ESMS manual tailored to the specificities of mini-grids. The second session, which will be on the 2nd of June, the second session, which will be on the 16th of June, will be looking at all people-related issues like stakeholder engagement, gender grievances, labor, anti-corruption, health and safety issues. The third one will look more into biodiversity, land, cultural heritage, and specifically the issue of waste and end-of-life management of equipment. I mean, batteries in particular are a preoccupation for quite a few people. Session 4 on the 26th of June will be on the operationalization of ESG impact reporting, the issue of human resources as adapted to the scale of operations, and the road ahead to enhancing impact and development outcomes. Next slide, please. We would like this session to be interactive. I think ARE has shared with all of you the toolkits that we have developed. These are still in draft version and looking for comments. I think in the folder that's been shared with you, you also see an Excel spreadsheet. So in as much as you can and you have the time, could you also provide some comments in this Excel spreadsheet? That would really be extremely useful. We hope that this session will really be interactive. We will try and keep as much time as we can for questions and answers, and we look forward to you sharing actual case studies and actual preoccupations that you have in the field. I'll just go quickly now through the objectives of this session that we hope to achieve. And then maybe I'll ask each one of you here present to introduce yourselves by showing your face, so we can have more than just initials in front of us. And then there will be a quick questionnaire as to your expectations that we would request you to answer in the chat. So first of all, what we hope that you would be able to do after the session, one is that we hope to be able to contextualize, so to explain how these ESG requirements are designed specifically for solar mini grids and why proportionality actually matters. We will also strive to highlight the categorization of the various risks, categories C, B plus or higher, and to select the right category of tools pertaining to your mini grid, depending on how your project is classified. The next objective is basically to provide you with a few toolkits. One is helping you screen. The idea of screening the projects is to avoid getting into projects which will lead to too many ESG issues, risks, and costs, and to see how we can focus on minimizing those risks and costs, and then basically come up with writing an environmental and producing an environmental and social management system, which is actually tailored to the requirements of a mini grid and basically converges with your management requirements. We also would like to articulate how environmental and social management protects project impact, reduces costs, and supports financial flows. That's one of the objectives also, so that you don't perceive it just as an extra cost, but also as a win-win. Preparation. The idea there will also be to explain how stakeholder engagement at the very early stages starts at the screening stage and not really later. So I'm putting up maybe on the next slide, please, Gila, the little questionnaire that we have over here.
I'm sorry, Anjali, just before moving to the next slide, as Okan suggested in the chat, and a few of you have already done it, to just give a short couple of words of presentation so that we know who everyone is in the chat. So if you can open the chat in your browser and present yourself. Thank you very much.
Yes, that's fine. And if it's okay, maybe we'll just take a few seconds each so you can like show your face and introduce yourself verbally while thinking about these 5 questions that we have over here and that we'd like to start talking about. So first of all, sorry? Okay. No, that's all right. It's someone's microphone which was open. Okay, so we have Boris. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am Boris Mirinanzato from Anka. I work for Anka and I'm based in Madagascar. So very happy to be part of this training related to ESG. Thank you.
Thank you. We then have Roland. Or Komlanvi, Roland?
Of course. Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Roland Fagnon, and I'm the General Manager of Clean Energy for Africa. I'm joining this training since Benin, and I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then I have Damas.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Damas Zozo. I'm here representing Green Mass Capital Group. I work there as the ESG specialist. and happy to be a part of this big event. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Hugh Dimka.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Sorry, my name is Hughes Dimka. I'm from Hopewell Solution Services. We're based out in Nigeria. I have been looking forward to this program and this training, and I think one of my what I really want to leave with is actually how to implement ESG for investors and also how to make it work for us as a company here in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have Joseph.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joseph Mevayon from World Jolly Generation and Trading Company. We work in Benin and Central Africa. I'm now at Bangui. I'm very happy to be part of this program. Thank you very much.
Excellent. We have then Sylvester Langa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sylvester Langa from Mozambique and working with Annabelle. And I'm happy to join this training. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Nestor Penuti.
Merci. Bonjour à tous. Moi, c'est Nestor Penuti, responsable ESG des ISC Énergie. Je suis basé au Tchad. Je suis content, très satisfait de participer à ce programme de formation. Merci.
I have now, sorry, Nestor Prudence. Hello? Yes.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Prudence Nyambura. I'm currently working with Power Gen Renewable Energy and based in Nairobi, but we have presence in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and DRC. And I'm really happy to be here because at least I'm getting to interact with things which I have been looking at or working on for some time now. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have Rasoa Lisoa Minohanta.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Minwanda from JZ Madagascar. I am here as a technical advisor on gender and happy to be part of this training.
Perfect. Then I have Rivo, or Rivo, R-I-V-O. We cannot hear you. Yeah, I'm sorry, Rivo, we cannot hear you right now, so maybe we'll try in a little while. Maybe you can maybe you've introduced yourself in the chat already. We can ask Sandrine, maybe Pfister, to introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everyone. Sorry, I have an urgency, so I'm in the car, so apologize for the noise. So I'm Sandrine Pfister, joining from Bureau Veritas group. I am a global head of sustainable finance and very happy to participate. I have an extensive experience in investment fund before joining Bureau Veritas, so I'm quite familiar with the topic, but happy to learn more. Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you very much. Gila, I think we are seeing some other part of your screen than the presentation right now, or a later section of the presentation. Okay. So
Yes,
as
I
everybody,
don't know what happened. I'm trying to share again. You should have the right slide again, no?
Yes,
Okay.
this is it. Okay, so yeah, it's pretty impressive to see people from so many different places in the world. So we really look forward to hearing about your concrete preoccupations as we navigate through the environmental, social, and governance issues.
Sorry, I didn't get a chance to introduce myself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my name is Tembani Maranele. I'm from Jeka Energy in South Africa. We're operating in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and Botswana. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So maybe now what we'd be interested in knowing, so that Gila and myself can adjust the presentation, the talk that we give to a certain extent, in the chat, could all of you just maybe answer the first question, which is, how familiar are you with the ESG and ESMS frameworks? How would you rate it? 1 being that you've never heard about it, and 5 that you use them daily, so that we know whether we are dealing with a group of experts concerned with mini-grids, or people who are discovering basically the ESG framework.
So as a reminder, ESG means environmental, social, and governance, and ESMS is environmental and social management systems.
Okay. Okay, so 3.5. Interesting. Yeah, so I think it's quite interesting. I think we have a group of people who already are quite familiar with the frameworks, but some not so much. So this means, just as Gila has just done, like repeating what ESG or ESMS means. If sometimes we really start going too fast in all these acronyms and so on, please don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat, or even interrupting us while we go through the talk, because we really want this to be accessible to everybody. So really happy to hear about that. Gila, you want to add something there? So, I mean, this goes along with the next question. How familiar are you with the African Development Bank operational safeguards, or the IFC PS? Never heard of it, use them daily. Would you like to answer this question? Okay, partially. Okay. Somewhat familiar, right? Okay, so Gila, we maybe revisit the frameworks and the performance standards and the operational standards also quickly as we go through this. Well, thank you very much for all this contribution. Maybe we'll go to question 4 first. Have you ever run a formal ENS screening for a project?
So this might be obvious for most or all of you, but ENS we will see a lot is always environmental and social, the acronym.
Okay, so that's excellent. It seems that a number of you have already gone through the process and the loops. Okay, very interesting. Thank you. So maybe for the sake of time, if you agree, Gila, we'll club together question 3 and question 4, which is, what is your biggest concern about environmental, social, and governance in your work? Is it the time it takes? Is it the cost? Because I mean, most of you have gone through the hoops of it. Is it its complexity? Is it the fact that you feel that it has limited value or something else? And maybe you can just add in that same response an answer to question number 5, which is, what do you most want to leave with today? If you could contribute, that would be also interesting and helpful for us. Okay, cost, I see there.
Yeah, cost and complexity so far are the two. I think complexity is maybe even the bigger topic, even maybe more important than cost. Yeah.
Okay, cost and complexity. Okay, so Gila, we'll see whether at the end of this session, you'll tell us that we've managed to make it simple for you, because this is what we've been raking our brains with over the past few months with Gila. So yeah, we definitely hope to have made it, to have come up with something practical and not too complex. Human resources, but that would also be tied to cost. Okay. Excellent. So thank you all very much for this contribution. So without further delay, unless there is another question or another contribution, we can maybe move on to the introduction. Yes, Gila?
Do you want to leave the 5th question as it is, or you want to ask participants? There was question number 5. We can move on or ask as you.
Yeah, maybe, yes, sorry, I thought I had asked about it at the same time, but do some of you have an idea as to what you would most want to leave with today? It's maybe not an easy question. Okay. Okay, so with this, Q4, limited value. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, so I mean, in summary, I think most of you have gone through the environment, social, and governance processes and screenings, and a lot of you find it complex and costly. So let's see how we can try and make it simpler and give it value to your operations. So Gila, maybe we can go to the next slide, and I'll just introduce how we'll organize this session. Okay. So the idea through this session is that we'll be introducing to you what are the main messages of this guidebook, the key ESG standards, the risks and impacts in small mini-grid installations, and looking into the solar mini-grid realities. So we will propose a proportionate approach to risk categories analyzed against mini-grid size. Followed by that, we'll dive into some practical tools that we have developed. And this Gila will take you through 3 of them: assessment and management of risks and impacts, the screening toolkit, which is the categorization of risks and to identify the triggers, how to ensure that environmental, social, and governance management remains simple and effective. We'll have a short break then, and then we look at the environmental, social, and management system toolkit, so suggesting ways of setting up a monitoring system, and more generally a toolkit, which will be not too costly, hopefully, and practical and serve the purpose of increasing impact. We'll also look more specifically into health, safety, and environmental issues, and then conclude with a discussion and discussing what could be the synergies between the impact that we're looking for in mini-grid operations and management and synergies regarding environmental, social, and governance issues. Okay, so thank you for these extra contributions. Learn more and build on what I've already learned with this training program, the basics of ESMS frameworks and entry points, more knowledge about how to address ESG on mini-grid reality. Okay, so let's get on with it now. So could we go to the next slide, please, Gila? So this is what we try to address in the first place, which is navigating through the guidebook and mini-grid realities. So the question now is why scale changes everything and why most developers already qualify for a lighter ESG pathway. I think in all the discussions we've had, a lot of the donors do agree that there must be some degree of proportionality in what one is asking for, though all the risks and challenges need to be addressed. Next slide, please, Nila.
Do you want me to take over for this one?
Sure, go ahead.
So this is a bit of a complex slide, but it's just to give a first overview of the contents of the two main standards we're looking at and the reference standards for international financing of mini-grid operations in Africa. So we're working with the IFC Performance Standards, which has the performance from the International Finance Corporation, which is a part of the World Bank, which dedicates on the private sector. And we work with the African Development Bank operational safeguards, which are, so those are very similar in essence standards. And as you can see, we will have performance standard number 1, PS1, and operational safeguard number 1, OS1. It's basically the same contents with a few differences that we will talk about, but really you can look at one half or the other, and globally in the application, the complete application will be essentially the same for you. So whether you're working with a DFI or so when we talk about DFI, you probably know we talk about finance institutions, so investor or donor of any kind. They will, so most donors work with the World Bank standards and or the African Development Bank standards, which are aligned. So the IFC Performance Standards have 8 categories. The African Development Bank's operational safeguards are also 10. Here, the only difference actually, we won't look at OS9 at operational standard number 9, so this we can just forget. And number 10, operational standard number 10 is on stakeholder engagement and is included more or less in performance standard number 1. So this is why you can look, let's look at the IFC performance standards. It's maybe easier. So you have 8 of them, and they all address specific areas of environmental and or social risks and impacts of projects. And the titles are mostly self-explanatory. PS1 is the basis of how you organize and identify the environmental and social risks and impacts of your project and how you organize your operations in order to address those risks. So this is the core. So PS1 and OS1 are basically the core standards that will give you the recommendations on how to organize your environmental and social management. Yeah, and then the other standards are more specific. Number 2 is about labor and working conditions. So it covers everything around wages, contracts, workers, and specific topics that are usually more sensitive, such as how temporary workers are treated, how subcontractors and their employees are treated, child labor, forced labor, etc. PS number 3 is let's say the environmental one, with PS number 6. So number 3 is about pollution, contaminations, and efficiency of energy, water, of your use of resources. PS number 6 is the other environmental standard. It's about impacts on biodiversity and ecosystems. Okay. PS number 4 is about community. So how your project will impact the health and safety of the surrounding of the neighboring communities. PS number 5 is about the land itself. So how you acquire the land, and so the process and how you possibly have to move certain activities or people, and how you conduct this process and how you compensate those people who are affected. So this is really about the land, including the right-of-way of the distribution lines. And the 2 last are quite specific. Number 7 is about indigenous people. So amongst developers, some of you have to deal with this topic, others not, and it's quite tricky and difficult to understand, and it will be addressed in module number 2 next week. And PS number 8 is about cultural heritage. So we talk about sacred sites, sites of cultural value of any kind that could be affected by your project. So those are the 8 big topics we are talking about, and how we regroup environmental and social risks and impacts evaluation. So whether we work with the IFC Performance Standards or the African Development Bank's safeguards, in the end, in application, it will be the same. The thing is, the IFC PS are the general reference across all private investment for most international financiers, but they were issued in 2012. So they are quite there are subtleties and new topics, emergent topics, let's say, that are much more scrutinized today than they were 15 years ago. And they are taken into account more in the operational safeguards of the African Development Bank. And amongst those topics, we have everything around gender, which is a transversal topic, which is not named per se, but has to be addressed. And so it's really across. In the IFC Performance Standards, you will have gender topics that will have to be addressed along the way. And this will enter in the stakeholder engagement standard of the African Development Bank, and also in the number 7. So this is another difference. So these are subtleties, but just for you to have a sense of the differences between the two. IFC PS 7 is about indigenous people only, and vulnerable populations in general are addressed across the standards in certain specific paragraphs. But in the new vision now of environmental and social standards, we now consider vulnerable groups as a broader ensemble. So this is operational standard number 7 of the AfDB, so which includes all vulnerable groups and gives this emphasis on the idea that we have to identify any vulnerable populations or people who are potentially affected by our projects. So the gender and vulnerable populations are mostly the big topics. Another topic that is not directly addressed by the IFC PS is climate, but this we will address in module number 3 next week. All right, so that was a general presentation, and we will continue talking about those topics today and in the next module, so it will become, for those who are not so familiar with them, clearer and clearer.
Yeah, thank you very much for this introduction. So, of course, these categories are extremely useful because then we know all the subjects that we need to address, but of course can be and are rather overwhelming when one looks at the size of the sites we're talking about and the portfolio size. So we extracted some data from AMDA, Africa Mini Grid Developers Association. So this will not be news to you, but basically we're talking about sites which have under 500 connections. The installed capacity on average would be 150 kilowatt peak, but seldom more than 500 for a mini grid. And with a land footprint of 0.1 hectares per 100 kilowatt peak, we can see that the land footprint isn't tremendous. Donors, of course, now want to bring down transaction costs, and they cannot finance one site after another. So there is a drive to developing a portfolio of sites. And there we try to look into whether we have economies of scale and what kind of economies of scale. So I have someone who has an open microphone. Yeah, thank you. Okay, and generally the portfolio size, because we did quite extensive interviews, both from the financial community and developers, well, 150 sites is very rare. We only had one such developer, but often we had a number of sites which was like between 5 and 20. And therefore, when one looks at revenue with a unique site, if we're talking about $1,000 to $4,000 US per site, the question which was raised is, how can ESG be affordable? Can we really afford to have a full-time specialist there? So what this means for ESG basically is that first we must acknowledge that the negative impacts per site are limited in scale. So when we do the analysis that we're talking about before, we must really bear this in mind. And this is how we have tried to conceptualize the screening tool that Guilain will present to you later. So the impacts are limited, but yet, as we've seen, we don't have, much money to basically mitigate and compensate. So therefore, we would try to focus on projects which qualify as category C. We'll go into the definitions of category C, but category C means that no mitigation measures are required. Category B would mean that marginal or affordable mitigation measures are actually required. So therefore, for these mini grids, a lighter and standardized ESG package is probably realistic and sufficient. And the drive there is to propose such an approach to you and to the financiers. Of course, the challenge would be different for metro grids, where we're talking about more than 1 megawatt peak, urban metro grids with anchor loads. It's a different animal altogether and definitely needs further and a fuller environmental and social analysis. So if we have a portfolio of mini grids, it of course adds a complexity layer and triggers what we have called level 2. Next slide, please. I think, yeah, we can skip this one and maybe go to the next one. So just quickly, yeah, would you want to present this one, Gina?
Do you want to present the levels first, or do we present the categories first?
Yeah, go ahead with the categories.
All right. So we will present to you two different ways of looking at the sizes of and the categories of impact of your projects. and operations. So here I will present the 4 categories that are usually considered by financiers in terms of environmental and social impact. And then Anjali will present to you a categorization we created in order to adjust your response and your environmental and social system to your level of activity. So this will be presented later by Anjali in 3 levels. So for now, I will talk about the system that is usually used by international financiers to categorize your level of risk and impact, environmental and social risk and impact. So the levels that are defined by the World Bank and other international institutions are usually A, B, and C. Category A is considered as high risk. So we are talking about operations that usually of large magnitude with impacts that are way beyond the site of the project and that are either irreversible or which mitigation will take tremendous effort and resources. So category A, we go from category A, so this kind of project, which is definitely not your case, to category C, which is the lowest category, the lightest category of environmental and social impacts, where we talk about projects that are small in size with impacts that are located, that are only on the site or in the surroundings, that are of low magnitude and which mitigation, prevention, attenuation will require little resources. The graduation in between, so the official category in between is category B, which is called moderate risk. So moderate risk is the risks and impacts of the projects are not of a high magnitude or of a national proportion, or and they are but they are significant enough to require to put some resource to mitigate, attenuate, prevent them. The definitions are a bit more precise here on the slide. So the smallest category C, so no or negligible adverse environmental and social risks or impacts. Category B will be for when impacts are limited, site-specific, and mostly largely reversible through reasonable response, so with moderate resources. Yeah. And then category A is the highest I talked about. Category B plus is not an official category, but is used by most financiers to categorize projects that are not category A, that do not cause irreversible or very high magnitude impacts, but still require a higher level of effort. We will talk about it more precisely later about the categorization, but for now we present it just for you to have in mind. So category C for the smallest, lowest impact projects, B moderate risk, B plus substantial, more important, and the category A is something we are not looking at in the context of the mini-grids. One last thing about that, most national regulation, environmental regulations, and especially those about environmental and social evaluation and environmental and social impact assessments, etc., have their own categorization. So in most countries, they have annexes to the law that tell you if your project has is in a certain sector and a certain size, then you are automatically into category this or that. Sometimes the environmental authority will ask you to screen your project, to propose a category, and they will validate it, or they will assign you a category. So it really depends on the national context. So just to clarify that your DFI, your international financer, will assign the category to your you will suggest a category yourself, or they will assign a category to you. And this is not this doesn't depend on the national category. The national category is only for under the national regulation. And this international categorization that we are presenting here is the one that your international financer will be looking at. So this is about ESG, environmental and social categories, A to C. And now I will give the microphone to Anjali to present the other way we classify solar mini grids in terms of the size of the activities.
Thank you, Gila. So clearly, the question which then arises is a category B affordable for your mini grid? Because a category B, as Gila said, means sometimes that you need to do a specialist study and that you have specific mitigation measures which would be required. So basically, what we suggest, and it will be detailed in the toolkit, is that when we are working on a single site or a small cluster, so wherein the monthly revenue would be under $50,000 per month, we really want to make sure that we will be classified as a category C or maybe B with as little additional studies as possible required. However, it may happen, of course, that the mini grid is to be developed in a protected area, for instance, in which case it's not necessary that one says no, but one should be very clear right at the start that in this case, it will require specialist study, probably specific measures, and there's no way that with a revenue of only $50,000 per month, this could be affordable. So the stage has to be set right from the start that specific funds, specific technical assistance as a grant will be required to make it happen. Because if it has to happen and we have to go through with success through all this ESG compliance exercise at the due diligence stage, well, there's no way that a category B plus could be affordable for a small mini grid or a cluster which only has a revenue of under $50,000 per month. In this kind of a size, our proposal, which we'll go into more in detail later, is that we cannot afford a dedicated ENS officer. That's fine. And this is the reason why it's better to use standardized templates to cover core needs. So here, this has been one of the key efforts of this exercise. All the toolkits are actually those standardized templates because one cannot necessarily afford to have a specialist to basically go through all of this. So the idea there is that ESG then would be managed by the project manager or the commercial team who have to have enough awareness and knowledge about the first performance standards that Gila talked about earlier and that meld, as we will see later, into project management as a whole. The second category, which I mean everybody is striving to reach, is a portfolio of sites wherein the revenue would be above $50,000 and where maybe we'd reach a cluster of 30 sites, for example. Here, well, we may remain in category C, who knows, but if we reach category B or B plus, it's still maybe affordable given the income that we're going to generate, yet one must still remain very careful, you know, as to the number of specialist studies and measures that will have to be implemented and make sure that one has the appropriate funding and grant for that. In this case, probably a full-time ENS manager is affordable and is required. But there again, you see, we'll have one full-time manager managing a number of sites. So, of course, the site managers will have to be trained and will have to be trained to use these simple templates that we've been talking about. But having this full-time ENS manager will allow you to train your site managers better and will allow this ENS manager to analyze the results and to get into the so-called plan, do, check, act, improvement cycle with stronger documentation. And this whole improvement cycle and stronger documentation is really something that builds investor confidence and really helps in getting into this virtuous cycle of confidence building and growth. And we hope also bringing stronger management and performance of your mini grid per se. A metro grid, which is more than 1 megawatt peak in an urban area or semi-urban area with larger anchor loads, hopefully would not go into category A, but probably would require a full and comprehensive ESMS and an on-site health, safety, and environmental manager. Probably given the size, some specialist assessments would be required and one would need dedicated ENS staff. Next slide, please, Gina. Here, without going into, yeah.
Do you want me to take over for this, or?
No, I can go through that one, no problem. So when you develop a site, there is the site selection process and the feasibility study. And we all know that it is during this stage that the risk identification takes place, as well as its assessment. And this happens in the phases 1 and 2. It's important to do your screening properly and probably exclude a site which would seem to be too costly. And then while we do the feasibility and the permits, the funders often do require the environmental and social impact assessment as well as the management plan. But this again should remain absolutely proportionate to the size of your investment. And this is why we have proposed some simple templates that Gila is going to walk you through afterwards. With this, the due diligence from the investors, donors can take place, and hopefully that will be a success. So we can see over here that the ESG requirements are actually linked to all the phases of the project. During construction, during operations, there are high risks related to construction and operations. So it's important, like if we have the processes in place right from the start, the environmental and social management plans, the grievance redress mechanisms, if these have been simply put into place right at the start, it will make your operations much more robust and streamlined and help reduce your own risks. This is what we're basically driving for in order to reduce the risks and to reduce remediation costs. So financial and reputational cost of ESG for non-compliance are highest in the construction and operation phases, basically. Stop work orders are basically not what one is looking for, and one prefers to go in for the prevention costs, which are much lower during the initial phases. We'll also, in the training session number 3, go a little bit more into decommissioning, e-waste, and closure. So I think with this, in order not to stay too much into generalities, we can skip directly to slide 17, which is the toolkit. Yeah. Gila, can we, yeah, 17, yeah. So through the training programs, and you already have access to these, we have developed these practical toolkits that we're talking about. Gila will take you through 1.1, which is the, okay, yeah, we can do it here. Okay, that's fine. We can, through the screening. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's maybe, sorry, just it's maybe clearer on this one because you have the sequence also, yeah. Just.
Okay, so Gila will take you through the screening checklist, which is the toolkit number 1.1, and it is strongly recommended that in order to do our screening in a proper way, we engage the community right from the start. Therefore, stakeholder engagement, which will be presented in the session number 2, also should take place right from the start. During the feasibility stage, the idea is to start setting up the environmental and social management system, and the manual tailored to mini-grids that we propose will also be presented by Guylain today, along with the environmental, health and safety management plan. During this phase also, the stakeholder engagement plan grievance redress mechanism can be launched into, and these will be addressed during the training session number 2. If this is required, and there again, if we have too large a resettlement action plan or livelihood restoration plan to implement, it's better to screen out our project if it happens to be not affordable. We have to make sure at this early stage that this will be affordable for us. Otherwise, it's better not to do that specific mini-grid project. During the due diligence phase, one goes into the more detailed environmental and social action plan. So as we said, during construction and operations, we have to be ready with our worker code of conduct, the construction, environmental and social management plan, because we want construction companies and workers to also be aware of all what is happening there. And if we happen to externalize to an EPC contractor, all these obligations should also be transferred to the EPC contractor. During the operations, monitoring and reporting also takes place, and we put in place a specific gender action plan. And there, during our training session number 4, we will present the monitoring reports that we propose that should be as simple as possible. Decommissioning will be talked about during during the training session number 3. So this is basically, yeah, go ahead.
Just to complement on this one, so we produced a certain number of tools at the level where the developer has to implement it themselves. So for example, so the screening checklist, the site screening is something the developer conducts by themselves, whereas the environmental and social due diligence, for example, is usually conducted by the financed by the financer, the consultant or auditor is recruited by the financer, etc. So here, the toolkit doesn't include a specific tool for that because it's not conducted by the developer. So the same thing goes for the construction environmental and social management plan, which the contractor has to prepare. Etc. So the tools are that we prepare. So this set of tools that is described in here, it's for every step of the way the tool that you a basic template that you can use for your to create your own system operations, procedures, policies, etc.
Wonderful, thank you. So now we'll conclude this introduction with a few practices, and maybe feel free to come up with examples. That would really be more than welcome. We tried here to make it more concrete in terms of, as a mini-grid operator, you're looking for impact, you're looking for connections, you're looking for sales, and you're looking for quality of supply. So, of course, one wants to have as many connections right from the start. And there, how ESG can support that? Well, the number of connections, we all know, we always have this issue, tariff per kilowatt hour, service tariff. So the engagement with the community right from the start, by being transparent about what the tariff system is all about, by being transparent also about the fact that we will be putting in a grievance mechanism and redress an effective grievance redress mechanism will build customer confidence. This is basically what we have found, and yeah, it would be interesting to have feedback from some of you if you would like to share experience about problems you had regarding tariff transparency or uptake of connections. So good engagement really helps to achieve that. Revenue per customer. So we all do socioeconomic surveys to reveal willingness to pay, but the deeper we go into that through our stakeholder engagement plan and try to identify what could be future productive uses, what could be a gender or vulnerable population inclusive outreach, will also help in building ownership in the whole system and increasing demand. So if we engage systematically, the revenue per customer generally also increases. Now, if the whole community feels that that the system belongs to them, generally non-technical losses, theft will reduce. I mean, in lots of cases where we observe theft is when the community at large doesn't have a sense of belonging, doesn't have a sense of ownership rather for the whole system. So stakeholder engagement, building that kind of confidence through an on-site community liaison presence helps. Of course, you'll tell me it has to be affordable, but this is also in line with the environment, social, and governance principles. We're also looking for service availability. So increasing service availability, we can contribute through that because in the ESG system, there is an incident reporting and feedback channel which has to be set in place. So rather than focusing it only specifically for ESG, this also could be combined with all kinds of reporting on technical faults. And the earlier we address these faults, the more we can basically reduce downtime and increase our sales. Finally, asset life, battery and gensets, by doing regular maintenance, which comes with ESG, will also be helpful. And then, of course, at the end of the project, end of life management protects the asset and avoids regulatory sanctions. So before we move into the walking through some of the practical toolkits, is there some experience that some of you would like to share about problems related to connections uptake, related to discussions on tariffs, and related to non-technical losses, for example? Okay, Hugh, please.
Okay. Hi. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm enjoying every part of the session. The part I do know that we normally face here in Nigeria is I had a project where we went through the community engagement and the connections. But when we now got through to the project and the tariff was actually spelled out nicely with the community, after commissioning the site, after 1 month, when the tariff part now kicked in, we had a situation where a lot of the community came back to us and said they don't have any money to pay for any tariffs, and as such, we should leave. We should carry our minute wait and leave their site. At that point, up to now, we still don't know what to do. So I'm just wondering, how do I address that? Or against other future sites?
So if I understand correctly, your issue was that at the early stage, when you explained what the tariff was all about, the community basically said it looked good, but once you started connecting customers, they turned around and said it wasn't affordable for them.
Exactly. That's the
Okay.
situation.
Yeah, that's a pretty bad situation. So I don't know what the miracle answer to that could be, but maybe one should revisit the way that the tariff was explained at the start, and not only in terms of being explained, but maybe looking at the level of monetary income that that people have, and maybe they just overestimated the level of the amount of cash that they would have available to actually pay for this. They were carried away probably by their enthusiasm. Bringing down the tariff, I don't know whether it would make economic sense for you, or maybe another way of looking at it would be to look at other productive uses or other ways of packaging the service and the tariff level. Because is it that they don't have the money really, or is it that their perception when they do the calculation and calculate back to kilowatt hours is just simply, they feel it's too much because they start comparing to the main grid. It would maybe be interesting to go into a kind of a deeper diagnosis to find out whether it was just that we had not properly assessed the actual affordability, or whether it was just that they were over enthusiastic. Gila, you wanted to add something there?
Yes, just from a strictly environmental and social point of view and the standards. So first of all, Tuesday, not Tuesday, the module number two next week will address stakeholder engagement in much more detail, and the steps and the contents of a stakeholder engagement plan. And from an engagement perspective, I mean, your case is specific to, and you led the stakeholder engagement in the way you did, and this I don't know the details, but there might be possibilities for you to look into identifying accurately the structure, the social structure of the community around the site, of the beneficiaries of the projects and future clients of the mini grids, identifying how social it is socially structured, and how to get actual full approval of the project, not only from certain parties, because we often think we conduct a proper stakeholder consultation, but in the end we did not have the right interlocutors, or we talk to the chief but the population is not necessarily in line, or the other way around. We don't identify certain more vulnerable populations. So this will be addressed everything in the module 2. So it's just an idea like that. I don't know. I suppose you conducted the proper stakeholder engagement, but there can be layers to stakeholder identification and again engagement.
Okay, so thank you very much for this question and discussion. Yeah, and I see in the chat, this general issue that we have. Some communities don't pay tariffs, saying it's a state project. So, yeah, that's a general problem that we have, and I don't think we can resolve it by a magic wand if this is the attitude. I mean, if this is the case, then there is no other way than for the state to take on its own responsibilities and consider its own social obligations towards subsidizing or cost sharing in one way or the other, so that the whole thing remains affordable for the developer and for the end users. Okay, so thank you very much for this conversation. I think maybe Gila, I'll hand over to you to walk through 3 toolkits, and to move ahead now with assessment and management of risks and impacts stakeholder engagement, and information disclosure, right?
Thank you, Anjali. I don't know if so. We continue right away if everyone is still on board with us. If there is anything, please feel free to write it down in the chat or raise your hand. Yeah, we will continue with with the general the presentation of what will be the framework of your environmental and social management. We already talked about the IFC Performance Standards and the African Development Bank operational standards. If now we're looking at really at the AfDB, at the African Development Bank standards. As we already mentioned, the number one, so IFC PS number one or AfDB OS number one is your overall framework. It applies to all projects. It requires that any project operation development identify and assesses, analyzes its environmental and social risks and impacts. This assessment and the response, so how you attenuate, mitigate, prevent, reduce, compensate, etc. This is stated in all international standards. The level of effort that you make must be proportionate to the level of risk. So you are not required to conduct a full-on biodiversity assessment for a small site in an area that doesn't have sensitive ecological or biodiversity features, for example. It's so this idea of proportionate assessment and response is important here. And the first standard also requires that any operational development defines a clear environmental and social management system. So it's a basic structure that we will present later in the next slides, where you define what is your policy, what are your risks and impacts, what are the resources you put to mitigate those, and how you report. So we will talk about this more in detail. Yeah, and so this is basically for the IFC PS1 and African Development Bank OS number one. I will not enter into the detail of the climate risk screening. We will look into it. It's a short, small part. Now, operation standard number 10, which is dedicated to stakeholder engagement, doesn't exist in IFC PS, in the IFC PS, in the performance standards. It's sort of included in IFC PS1, in the first one. So this one is about community stakeholders, including community engagement, stakeholder engagement, and it will be developed in detail during module 2, so I will not go into it today. But those are your two basic pillars for environmental and social management, and every other operational standard from the African Development Bank or performance standard from the IFC, they all target specific topics. But OS1 and OS10 or PS1 and PS10, they create your structure and framework. So if we go more into detail, so OS1, PS1, and 10, we just mentioned. So those are your backbone and apply to all your backbone structure, and they apply to all projects. Then labor and working conditions. Standard number 2, resources efficiency and pollutions, number 3, and community health and safety and security, number 4. and the number 8 on cultural and sacred heritage. All of those, they apply to 2, 3, and 4, all apply to all projects. Okay, whatever the project, you have to consider those operational standards. And we will go a bit into more detail of all of those. Then you have another. Someone has someone has opened a microphone. Thank you. So we have then standards that will be triggered only in specific situations. So those are 5, 6, and 7. 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, land acquisition. So if no one is affected by the acquisition of the site, and if you conduct the acquisition in a way that is compliant with the international standards, then PS5 doesn't, or the standard number 5 doesn't isn't triggered. If one person is affected, and it can be, and this we will look into it in module number 3, because this is probably the most complex standard of all. If any person is affected, whether in their livelihood revenues or in their place of residence, whether they are they have a formal title of occupation or not, then you trigger a PS number 5 or OS number 5. And once you trigger this this standard, it requires specific assessments. So in general, we try to avoid that standard number 5 is triggered. So we try to find a site that doesn't affect anyone in any way, whether it's economically, livelihood, any form of usage, or a residence. The same goes with biodiversity and sensitive habitats. So we, at the screening level, before we start the project, we try to we do this environmental and social screening, and we try to avoid that the site is in the proximity or has any or in the vicinity or has any impact on an area that is known to be sensitive in terms of biodiversity. So this also we will look into in module number 3. And the topic of indigenous people, which is also a very delicate and complex topic, will be addressed in module number 2. But in the same way, we will try to avoid it from the start. So we will try to not trigger any of those standards. And the same goes with cultural and sacred heritage. If so, this at the screening level, you try to avoid that a site where you have to where you would impact cultural or any object or site or activity of cultural or sacred nature. So those 3 are in red because usually we reserve those, we usually exclude for smaller projects. So for level 1, as defined earlier by Anjali, we exclude the site if one of those is triggered, or we try to. And for cultural and sacred heritage, usually we will tend to exclude it, but there can be workarounds, and in the community engagement, we can still manage to work with it for smaller sites. Yeah, so standards that apply to all projects, standards that we try not to trigger. So the first half apply to a project, second half we try not to trigger, as simple as that. Yeah, and again, we will look more into the detail today and in modules 2 and 3. Just coming back to the categories. So based on what we said, so as a reminder, category C, lowest risk, category A, highest risk, and B and B plus, the intermediary levels of risk that require more and more dedicated effort and resources to evaluate, mitigate, and manage the environmental and social risks. So from there, so I just put this slide here as a reminder. And what creates the escalation here from category C to category A? It will be in every on every standard. So we will just give a few examples here. I will not go through every single case, but for example, depending on the composition of the workforce during construction and operations, if there is or not migrant workers, if you work through third-party brokers, so if you hire from subcontractors who will themselves hire temporary workers, depending on if you do it, how many there are, and then occupational health and safety, the higher the risk, the higher we will go in the categories. So if your workforce is quite limited, recruited locally, with limited health and safety risks and safety risks on the sites, and if you work with one work supplier or not at all, etc., no migrant labor, then we can stay in category C. Once your workforce reaches a critical size, you have migrant labor, etc., then we escalate to category B and etc. So we are creating a categorization document that will help for you to assess your category based on a set of criteria, which are basically those that you are seeing here. Those that conduct to exclusion criteria for smaller projects. So as we said, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8. So we will address those two in module 3, and those two will be addressed in module 2. So we will talk more into detail about those in the modules in the next week. So I will not enter in this detail now, but just for you to have a sense of that every kind of environmental and social risk can escalate your risk category to a higher level. So this is a little case study that we prepared for you. It's very basic, and I mean, it's very basic. It's never so basic, but it's just those are very extreme cases, and it's just for us to have a little bit of a conversation around how to categorize projects. So the idea here is, Anjali, how would you like to conduct this? Do we do it a bit popcorn style, where those who want can share ideas, or through the chat?
Yes, I think that in as much as possible, it would be nice if it is interactive, and maybe we can walk through it, the definition, and then people can react through a chat. And then maybe those who want to share some experience as to what kind of sites they're working on, that would be really useful.
All right.
Yeah.
So starting with case number 1, case A, sorry. So we are in a rural area in Burkina Faso, and you are installing a 75 kilowatt peak mini grid in a village of 320 households. So your site is on unused land. The land tenure is communal, and from the conversations you have, there is no formal ownership disputes on the piece of land that you're considering. When you visit the site, you're talking around, they tell you that the nearest forest is 5 kilometers away. And when you ask also, there is no indigenous communities identified. And you have 4 sites in total, with a monthly revenue around $18,000 US dollars. So here the questions are, how would you evaluate your level and risk category in this case for the whole operation, okay, and for the site? Then, so once you have this in mind, we can go back to the standards for you to see which, or actually, from the text here, you can just say, we don't need the number, the PS number 1 or 2 or 8, but just to, what are the topics here that are potentially triggering an environmental and social standard? Yeah, so those are the two questions. And if you know already, what kind of tool do you implement to manage the environmental and social risks?
Yeah, the tool may be a little bit ambitious, though. Yeah, so it would be interesting if you could, put in the chat, some of you or those who feel up to you, what level? I mean, are we in level 1, level 2 of a larger cluster? And do you feel that we would be in risk category C or B? And then would we have some operational standards, and which ones triggered? You know, the first ones related to some social issues, or some related to some more technical issues. What do you feel about that? And then maybe you can, some of you, share whether you have sites, most of your sites had these characteristics or not. So we leave you 2-3 minutes to maybe add this into the chat. Yeah, so maybe we can help a little bit. We had suggested that level 1 would be the level with, level 1 would be the level with a revenue under $50,000. So probably that would be the case, but I see nobody in the chat. Maybe Joseph. Yes. Thank you, Joseph. The floor is yours.
Ok, je vais parler en anglais, je vais parler français.
Pas de souci pour parler en français, on traduira.
Merci beaucoup. Il faut qu'on aille de l'avant sur cette formation importante. Je prends le premier exercice sur le Burkina, où on a 75 kW de mini-grid avec les 300.
Does everyone has issues as well?
Est-ce que Joseph, vous pourriez répéter, parce qu'on vous a perdu là pendant 20 secondes et on n'a pas entendu ce que vous disiez.
Toutes mes excuses, au fond, on a un problème de connexion en RCA. Je disais que par rapport au risque, parce que la première question, c'est quels sont les genres de risques auxquels ce projet est confronté. Il y a d'abord le risque environnemental. Et on sait que versus on communal land. Il y a aussi le risque. Moi, je détecte d'abord le risque environnemental. Et je détecte aussi cacher tout mon revenu. C'est vrai, le projet génère un revenu dont on en parlait là, mais est-ce que la communauté, ces ménages qui sont autour des sites d'installation du projet, il y a d'abord le risque aussi social. Le risque social, je m'en arrête là d'abord. C'est juste pour introduire. Merci beaucoup.
Yes, so for a quick translation, and maybe you can add on, Gila, to that, the question which is being asked is that it seems that there is no major environmental issue, though we don't know clearly from this short description. The monthly revenue is around 18,000, but we don't know what the socioeconomic and revenues of the households actually are. Yeah, these were the two main comments over here. Okay, so category B. Did I see someone else raise a hand or no? No.
Rivo, if you would feel, or Boris, or any of you, if you feel like justifying why category B, why level 1 category C, we're happy also to hear. So why would you choose those categories and levels? But if you feel like sharing it in the verbally.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. Why the level 1? As you mentioned, it's under the kilowatt peak is 75. So I think it's a level 1. And for the risk category, I'd say C, because the risks are related mainly to the land, the environmental, to the land, the use of the land. There are no indigenous people, and also there is no protected areas nearby. So I'd say it's a low risk category. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to, especially if you would categorize the project as category B, what would be the rationale behind it? Because so we had the explanation of why it would be category C, but if you chose category B.
So I think we got some interesting feedback. Gila, would you like to comment on the reactions? I think they're pretty interesting.
Yes, it's really interesting, and it's amazing also to see that there is the right mindset, because you already several of you already think, okay, there might be social impacts, the communities around, and at the same time seeing the case study, based on the info we have, we can suppose that the social impacts are limited. So both approaches are actually good. So one, looking at the facts that are here and saying, okay, based on those facts, well, there is no significant social impact. But however, this approach that you have of thinking, okay, there might be people approaching, or there might be social impacts is also quite, this is how you will do your screening, and you will, when you are on the field, you will ask people around and you will try to identify really who would be affected and how. And this mindset will help you to be accurate in your first evaluation, which is critical for the rest of the stakeholder engagement project and the project development in general. So in this case, so we have a 75 kilowatt peak project, so it's less than a hectare in size. So we really have a small piece of land, and it's a unused communal land. It is true that there is no, we don't know if when we say unused, what does it mean? Does it mean that there is no official use, or does it mean that actually no one had any agriculture or any activity, or is not picking or using it to provide any form of resource? So so yeah, this is we are on a small size site with, from the information we have, no one's resources or livelihood affected, and nearest forest is 5 kilometers away. Suggests that, so this you have to talk around and make sure about it, but it suggests that the biodiversity impact is not significant, and no indigenous communities affected. So here, standard number 5, people affected in their resources or land ownership, or where they live, residence, is not triggered. Standard number 6 on biodiversity, from the information we have, probably not triggered. Standard number 7 on indigenous communities, probably not triggered. And small sites, very limited impact, we could say, okay, for now we consider it's a category C. All right. And indeed, if it appears during the conversations or that there are potential social issues or bigger topics, then we could bump it into category B. But for now, with the information we have, it would be a category C. And in terms of level, so this is more your so just before we go there, just to as a reminder, category C, low negligible risk, and category B, moderate risk. So I understand why you would say category B, but we bump into category B if we identify that there are actually impacts that need to be addressed, and that are manageable. Here, there is no, with the information we have, we need more information. With the information we have, we can stay at category C. So I see a comment that says that it's a small site, and in that there is a high risk. What do you mean by that? Because usually when we look at environmental and social impact, the smaller the sites, the smaller, the area, the deforestation risk is low, the people impacted are less, etc. So this, if you want to develop your comment. What if the site has an overlap with a protected area? So this is a topic that we will talk about on module 3. But in this case, standard number 6 on biodiversity is immediately triggered. And so there are subtleties to it, but in any case, a protected area is considered as a place of biodiversity interest. So you're immediately bumped into category B+ or A, depending on the criticality of the protected area. So if there is an overlap, because this will require specific measures, usually the intervention of a biodiversity expert, etc. So we tend, what we do in this case is at screening, we identify that the site overlaps or is in very close vicinity to a protected area. We exclude the site, we try to find another one that is farther away. Go
ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going back to the slide on the levels so that we can just, yeah, maybe it can help to. And I give you the floor, Anjali, if you.
No, I was just sort of wrapping up the discussion, saying that, yeah, the discussion was really, I find the discussion really interesting because from the information we have, given that it is a small site and we don't know about any kind of risk, we could probably, keep it as a level, as it is level 1, say that it's a category C, but it's very true that we need to cross-check a number of issues that you asked about, which may put it into a category B. But typically, this kind of a site, we would want to quickly do the additional assessments to try and keep it into category C and then move ahead with a light ESG approach more on the management front and not necessarily have to engage in more of the specialist studies. But yeah, I think very, very interesting and interactive discussion. So just asking all the participants and Gila, we have an agenda which is a little bit flexible. We can either now go into the second case study or dive directly into the screening toolkit. An option also would be to have a 15-minute break now rather than to have a big half-an-hour break later. Gila, how do you feel about it? And maybe participants, you can also express what you feel about this now.
Yes, it's I follow the democratic decision.
Okay, so who wants to go? We can. So number 1 would be a break. Number 2 would be the case study B, and 3 would be to move to the screening toolkit. So can we just interactively say what your preference would be in the chat, and then we decide where we take it from here. So 1 for a break, 2 for case study B, and 3 for moving to the screening toolkit. Okay, Gila, so yeah, case study. Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a bit of a diverse, and we have diverse answers here. Do we need a pause? That may be the biggest question right now. Or do you want to continue? We have a bit more than 2 more hours to go on the training. So we can have a pause, a short pause now, if you want. And if you all feel like continuing, then we would have to decide whether we do the second case. Maybe we can do it in a much shorter. I can go through it quickly, and then you can ask questions if you want. So yes is about the pause.
Let's do then a 5-10 minute break. So now I see on my, it's 3:23. So should we do it just like 5 minutes up to 3:30 on my time? Like really a 5-minute technical break. And then we move quickly to the case study and the screening. Okay. Let's do that then. So see you then in 5-10 minutes.
I don't know if Anjali is back. So if everyone is back, we can continue. Okay, I'll give it 2 more minutes. Bien, je vous propose de reprendre. Est-ce que vous pouvez confirmer que vous voyez toujours mon écran avec les 2 études de cas? Sorry, I was speaking French. I suggest that we start again. Okay, and you see my screen. That's great. So for case B, Anjali, if you agree, I would just summarize main conclusions quickly. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So here we have a bigger developer. We are in Tanzania. It's a 1.5 megawatt peak hybrid mini grid in a peri-urban area in a district of 8,000 people. So on the site currently there is mostly agriculture, subsistence agriculture for 12 households. And the local ethnic group has historical ties to the land, and there might be considered as indigenous people under national law. So may hold means that you don't know. But we heard about it, and it's a possibility. We are not sure. And we are talking about a developer that has 22 sites and a portfolio revenue of $120,000 US dollars per month. So a very different case. So here in terms of the level, I would talk under Anjali's control, but this would be a level 2, or it's a microgrid. It's a level 3 already.
Level 3 already.
So
Level 3 already. Yeah.
That's special. Thank you. Regarding environmental and social risks, so here we are in a in terms of the site itself, we are not. It's still not.
Just Gila, I'm just interrupting. Just 2 seconds because I can see there's some answers in the chat. Maybe. I just wanted to, because I think there may be some confusion. Category C is the category which is the simplest category, which doesn't require any mitigation. Category B is that we need some mitigation, and A is the one which is the highest risk. So that's why I just wanted to make it clear. A is the highest risk and C is the negligible risk. So over to you, Gina, again. Gila, you are on mute.
Yes, sorry. So all mini grids have a small size in general. I mean, in terms of the superficie of the land. So here we are again on a less than we are under 2 hectares, let's say between 1 and 2 hectares for this particular project. However, we are in a peri-urban area, so much more populated, and the use of the land becomes much more complicated, and the population affected potentially by the project, so who live or have activities in the immediate vicinity of the project, is you will have your stakeholder engagement will be much more complicated. You will have more groups, more people, more stratification, etc., and more representatives to consult, more vulnerable groups, etc. So we are not in a category C, that's for sure, anymore, because we already have a level of size of project, general potential impact that is higher, and there is more effort to make to identify the different stakeholders. Now, on top of it, we are talking about a project that is on a land where there is activity that we know of. So you identified 12 households who have agricultural activity. Subsistence agriculture means that we don't know if they have title on the land or not, but from the point of view of the international standards, it doesn't matter whether they have a title or not. They are cultivating there before the project starts, so they have to be considered as displaced by the project if we use that land. So those 12 households will have to be identified. There has to be a consultation with them, a survey, a socioeconomic situation survey, and we have to provide compensation that brings them back to, at the minimum, the level of their livelihood before the project, so minimum or higher. So 12 households. So this is economic. We will talk in module 3 next week about population displacement. In this case, we are talking about economic displacement. So it's not their residence that is moved. It's just their revenue or part of their revenue or livelihood. I mean, it is economic, and this is considered, and this has to be. And this triggers standard number 5, and the international standards are very clear and very detailed about how to handle this kind of situation. So again, we will talk about it next week in module 3. But this already bumps the project again into category B or B+. And now you have also the possibility that so the land is also so here it says it has ties with an ethnic group that might be indigenous. So in this case, by default, since we don't know and it might be, we consider that PS set is standard number 7 on indigenous people and vulnerable population is triggered. And we need to assess further whether actually we are talking about indigenous people or not. So this bumps the project into category B+ and potentially A, and this depends on your DFI, on your financier. There are financiers that will consider that any project with indigenous people is right away category A. Others will say it's B+. Why is it important? And this, well, I will leave you with a cliffhanger. This will be addressed on in module 2. But the key acronym is FPIC, so free, prior, informed consent, and this brings the level of stakeholder engagement it bumps it to much more complicated and long processes. So here the category is B+ to A at this stage. Yeah. So most of you have identified that it's a high-risk project. And the same way we'll talk about it in module 3, but how many displaced households are considered category B or B+ or A is also depends on the international on the financer. But we, as I said, we are discussing a possible categorization matrix that could be used as a reference. So where we consider that below a certain number of displaced households, you consider that the project is category B, B+, or etc. Yeah. So thank you for all the. I mean, the answers that you provide are quite accurate. So yeah. So I think we move to the ESMS. And we start with the screening.
Yes, Gina, it's up to you. I think we had also envisaged to start with the screening because we are right in the heart of the subject of screening right now, I guess. So it's really up to you, but it may be a good point in the discussion now to present our screening checklist, which is basically about the case studies we've just gone through, isn't it?
Yes, perfect. On the screen, you should see now the list of the tools that we created in the frame. So for you to use as templates for your developments. So we already presented it. We are using. You will see that we are using this same color code. I will come back to it later. You can consider that you have 3 levels. Here you have one that is for the early stages of the project and the reporting. So like like site screening, terms of reference for Asia consultants, environmental and social impact assessment consultants, and the reporting template. You have those orange documents that are about stakeholder engagement and human rights and business integrity. So stakeholder engagement plan, grievance redress mechanism, gender action plan, and business integrity policy. All of those will be presented in module 2. And in 3, you have the more operational, if we accept stakeholder engagement, the operational procedures. So the backbone, which is the SMS manual that we will present today later on. So environmental and social management system manual. You have worker code of conduct. You have the health, safety, environmental and social plan, which is a document where we gathered a series of plans and procedures that I will present later, but this is really more operational. And the health, safety, environmental and social clauses for your contractor. So those are usually, we created a template of clauses that you can add to your contract with your contractor, so that for them to develop their own construction environmental and social management plan. So all of those tools, they have within them levels. So what applies to level 1, and then certain sections or parts that are specific to level 2 and 3, so to bigger solar mini grids projects. So today we will talk about the screening and then the backbone of your environmental and social management, which is the SMS manual. And I will just quickly present the structure of the HSES plan, but this we will look more into in module 3 next week. So yeah. For now, we'll look at the screening checklist. I will show you screenshots of the document afterwards. So it's the site screening checklist is a model that you probably have similar documentation. By the way, something I forgot to mention is the tools that we built them so based on the recommendations of the international institutions such as IFC, World Bank, African Development Bank, etc. So who have their own standards. So of course those documents are compliant with those standards, but we also compiled a number of tools and templates and frameworks developed by financiers who are active in solar mini grids development in Africa. So we compiled and tried to take what works, what doesn't, and the essence of those. So the idea is to create a toolkit that would be satisfying for any financer who works with the international standard. But you always have to check with the financer because they all have different requirements. So if you use a tool, it's always good to just check in with the financer and especially their environmental and social officers or responsible to see if to check with them if this is compliant with what they need. If you do that, is it enough for them? And then you can go on. So yeah, just a little precision on the side. So moving on to the screening checklist. This is site specific. So we look at one particular site, and the screening checklist is built as follows. So first step is to describe the site. So where is it exactly? How big is it? How is it populated within and around? What's the land tenure and ownership situation and the existing use? So the more accurately it's described, the easier it gets to have an overview of the site and already to have a sense of what environmental and social standards might be triggered or not. So based on the site description and the location, there is a phase of desk review. So looking at the map, IBAT is a tool that we will present in module 3, which let's say, I mean, if you know how to use it, in 10 minutes, you know if you are close to a sensitive area or not in terms of biodiversity. So you can create your, you can justify that standard 6 on biodiversity is not triggered just by using that tool. I mean, for a financer and for a small size project, we will talk about this in module 3. Yeah, National Biodiversity Database, and IP stands for indigenous people. So, and if there is So those we will talk about in the modules. So when you do your site screening, you will use those tools ideally before you go on site, so that you already have in mind what is the situation regarding those issues. Field verification. So visiting the site, obviously, visiting the community, preliminary consultation, and photo record. So two things here. The first one is community engagement starts as early as you can, and this again will be addressed in module 2 next week. But this is really a key, and your first field visit, talking at least to the people who are living close by, to the head of the traditional authorities, to people who are on the land, etc. So identifying those people, just observing and having a first vision, and engaging those who are having a first approach. So this again, module 2 will clarify this. So this is one side, and the other side is here, photo record, and it works for consultation, it works for everything. Document everything. So this is key for finances. Any consultation you conduct, any site visit you conduct, any description you make, if you have a photo, if you have a memo of the consultation with the participants, the date, the topics and decisions that are made, or agreements, etc. Everything that you can document, do it, because it will help first of all justify anything in your environmental and social development process, and it's also at the moment of the environmental and social due diligence, you have the documentation, and the auditor will be grateful to you, but it will make it much easier at this phase the non-compliance that they will identify will be already there will be much less if you have the documentation available. So I insist on that, because really documentation is key, like having clear registries for each of your activities, and documented archives is really important. So continuing the screening checklist, we look at critical topics. So we talked already about, and I keep repeating it, but it's so that it becomes common knowledge for you. Standards 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, land tenure. 6, biodiversity. 7, indigenous people and vulnerable populations. 8, cultural heritage. So those 4 topics are potentially triggering exclusion. So if you identify that one of those standards is triggered, you identify it at the screening level. You can already decide if you keep going with the site, and then talk with your DFI or the finance, if you have a financer, to see, okay, can they help you deal with this issue? Can they provide technical assistance on this specific sensitive area in terms of biodiversity or the population displacement, etc.? Or do you exclude it right away because to avoid future costly and time-consuming and delaying evaluation studies, expertise, compensation, consultation, etc. And so from all of those first assessments, then you will go into more detail of the screening of the different criteria, and from there you can establish your risk category. So this is the process to go through for the screening of site, of the site you want to develop your mini grid on. So this is a bit harshly put, but for smaller projects, the no-goes are physical displacement. Physical displacement means loss of residency for some. So you basically have to destroy someone's home or part of their home, formal, informal. That doesn't matter, to establish your project. This is physical displacement. If it's only for one house, it already triggers standard number 5, and this bumps your project right away to B+ category. So this is not worth it for smaller projects. KBA, we'll talk about it in module 3, key biodiversity area. So this goes with this IBAT tool that we will talk about in module 3, and protected areas. So those are the two major, if a site is a KBA or a protected area, then it's a no-go for smaller projects, because it means biodiversity expertise and costly measures of avoiding impacts, compensating, etc. Confirmed presence of indigenous people. So this is also usually a no-go for a small project, unless you have a TA behind, so a technical assistance facility from a financer who goes along with you in this process. But otherwise, I mean, conducting free prior informed consent FPIC on your own, which is required if there are indigenous people, is it's very specialized. It's heavy consultation that need to be very documented, that have very specific rules. So this we'll talk about in module 2, but this is also a no-go for smaller projects. And sacred sites where you feel during consultation, or where you feel, or where it's confirmed during consultation that it can be problematic, that you can't reach an agreement immediately and easily on moving the cultural or the sacred item or element from the site to develop your project. This is also a no-go. Yeah. So the screening tool itself. So this is the first a screenshot of the first page. So yeah, I mean, it's just there is nothing really specific there, but just to show you a bit how the tools work, because they all have the same introduction structure. So we have a short introduction, the standard reference that are associated, so AfDB and IFC PS with how do you call it? With links, and the tools, the other tools that are connected to that template, so that you can use that will be used in parallel, and the application to the different levels. So level 1, level 2, yeah. This needs to be updated, by the way. But yeah. So I don't know if you will see. Can you see I opened it. I opened the screening checklist. Can you see it, or do I have to change the?
I think you have to exit this PowerPoint sharing and then to reshare on the Word document. Yeah, so while Gila handles that, the idea now, we've given you access to all the Word toolkits that we have. So now Gila will navigate you through this one so that you basically see what it looks like. Gila was saying earlier that you need to check with your financier whether he would agree with this kind of approach. Now, I'm not saying that the work that we've done here is absolutely cast in stone and is a generic policy of the IFC and of the African Development Bank, but This approach and these tools that we are presenting to you have been extensively discussed with the teams at the IFC and at the African Development Bank and will be posted on their sites. So we sincerely hope that with this kind of endorsement, even if it's not a, let's say, political validation, one could have strong arguments to use this practical and simpler approach to navigating our mini-grids through environmental, social, social, and governance compliance. So over to you, Gila, for navigating through the word toolkit. And please feel free, everybody do remember that you have access to an Excel file that was shared with you, and don't hesitate to make comments for us to improve on these toolkits.
Thank you, Anjali. I also see that there are questions and comments in the chat that might require answer. If we don't, please remind us that we answer the questions that haven't been answered in the chat. Is this big enough for everyone to see, or should I move to one page only? It's good? Okay. So if you can't see, tell me, I can zoom in, so that is better. So this is the tool as it is now. So as I presented to you already, the first block here, and then every tool has this little box, which we call, if you do nothing else, do at least those things. So in this case, before committing to the site, you are screening the site, and it gives you the main thing. I mean, the critical thing that you have to do if you want to be compliant, that you can't go around. So here, every question in the exclusion criteria table. So exclusion criteria is you can't go around. And if there is any yes, we will look at it in a second. If there is any yes in the exclusion criteria table, then, as I said before, you have to reconsider the site, see if there is possible assistance from your financer, or drop it altogether. Site visit is obviously unavoidable. You can't go around. You have to see the site by yourself, and then speak to a minimum of people on site. So this, again, module 2 next week. And yeah, just as a preparation for module 2 next week, the usual thing we tend to do is to just go directly to the authorities, talk to the authorities, and make a visit with them, and then that's it. The recommendation today is to, here, as it's written here, speak at least to one woman who either in the authority context or around or on the site, and to one elder from the community. So to get really this multiple feedback and avoid this, avoid the bias of speaking only to the head of community, and this can avoid a lot of issues in the development of the project. Which so again, module 2 next week. Land tenure status is a critical issue. Yeah, I was looking at a question in the chat. This question also is important. Let's come back to those questions later on. Land tenure status is a critical issue, as we already talked about. So standard number 5, and so check what documentation exists on land property, land tenure, etc. And this, I mean, land tenure has to be known in detail before anything is signed or any work starts, and this we will talk about in module 3 next week. So ask about, so JBV stands for gender-based violence. So ask one question about gender-based violence or conflict history in the area. So again, just to have a sense of the social context, and we talked about gender issues, and under the wider umbrella of gender is the issue of gender-based violence. So once again, topic that will be talked about in module 2 next week. But this is also a critical topic from the point of view of DFIs, of financiers. Yeah. And the checklist, yeah, should be filled and signed. So the screening checklist before being transmitted to any financer. So I will answer the two last questions in the chat. The last one is about so that those tools are supposed to be used at different stages, but what if you already chose the site when financiers and fundraising happens? Here the screening checklist, it's not only developed to be in compliance. I mean, it is compliant with international standards, but it's also a tool for you. I mean, the idea here is really that we are creating tools that are not only for you to be compliant with international standards, but also that will most probably avoid you many issues. We had an example before with the issue on the price. So I don't know if it's because of the stakeholder engagement or not, but many projects are abandoned or fail or have significant costs, unforeseen costs, because of like insufficient screening. So here the screening that we are doing, for example, on land tenure, if someone comes back and starts complaining about because they had they were cultivating this land and etc. Before you insert your, or if there is a claim that you didn't identify and then it escalates into a conflictual situation that goes out of hand or etc. It can be very simple. It's because this takes a couple of days of like the site visit and a little bit of work, and then you're set. You know exactly what's happening on the land. But if you're not sure, if you signed a lease agreement with the head of the community without having consulted around, without knowing what conflicts are dormant in the etc. So this screening checklist is not only to be compliant; it's also for you to make sure that you are not that you are aware of all the risks and avoiding sites that might have significant liabilities for the future. I hope that answers your question. And just quickly about the question where if the international standards category is different from the national law. So environmental law will say your project is category C, but according to international standards, this often happens. Actually, you're bumped in a higher B or B+ level. This will happen a lot with solar mini grids, because in most regulations they would fall in lower categories. In this case, for financer, what prevails is the international category. So what we presented here. So you will have to, even if the law tells you have to only do a simplified ASIA environmental and social impact assessment, or a notice d'impact in certain French countries, so very French-speaking countries, very limited document and assessment, but your financer will tell you, no, you have actually population displacement that is not taken into account by the law, recognized by the law, but recognized by international standards. So you have to do a full assessment. So this is a common case that the financer will ask you to be more detailed.
Yeah, so basically the question which is asked there is a pretty tricky one, which is it is costly to go to remote sites, just to summarize, but it is cheaper than actually engaging and then running up with the very higher cost, which may be entailed later if you discover that there is a problem later on, to cut a long story short at the end of the day. So I think what we can say also is that in these toolkits, what we've tried to do also is to make them as practical as possible as to the levels, meaning our project sizes. And if we scroll down, maybe Gilan can also scroll down quickly, we've really tried to do something extremely practical there, where we have typically what kind of a description of the site we need, which you see in section 1 over here, so that, we're sort of sure that we've not missed out on something important, which could potentially trigger one of the performance standards. So the whole idea, I mean, of course, this is not absolutely foolproof, but we've given it quite a bit of thought and adapted to the mini grid situation. So yeah, we don't have the time to go through each and every one of these exclusion questions, but there are some, like, is the site located in or adjacent to a critical habitat? That's typically a question that you would want to answer over there. And then we also offer to try and make it as easy as possible for the user, a description, a definition of what a critical habitat is all about. Because the whole idea over here is really to make it as user-friendly as possible for people who are not ESG specialists. So critical habitat, yeah, I know exactly what it means, etc., etc., etc. So does the area include a cultural heritage site? And we try and define all of that. So in other words, we would really also appreciate if you had the time to go through these toolkits and come with comments, as to whether you find them really useful and practical. We also tried to be really to the point with the field card at the end of the second page over here. So at the exclusion criteria stage, do at least these 3 things, like walk through the full site perimeter, and do not rely on satellite images alone, which we generally, like to do, because it is helpful. Maybe a satellite image will show you something which will tell you, yeah, it's just not worth going there. So, I mean, that's already one level of screening, which is good. But also, looking for different sites of housing, cultivation, land use, etc., etc. Try and discuss with a local person who's not affiliated to the project. This is, about the communities nearby which could be affected or not affected, asking, random questions about whether there is something to do with heritage and so on. And record your yes/no answer, with signature. This is what I think Gila has really insisted about. It is that as we go to the site, might as well document what we are doing as much as possible, because this will be helpful later on when we go through the process and submit to the donor. Yeah.
Thank you, Anjali. Meanwhile, I was just putting in bold the questions here just to come back, and I'm insisting, but because the repetition makes critical habitats, biodiversity, standard number 6, cultural heritage, standard number 8, physical or economic displacements, resettlements, standard number 5, and indigenous people, standard number 7. It's always the same, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's always the same topics for the critical topics here. And then, so this was the exclusion checklist. And then we have a section with the non-critical issues. So we won't go through everything, but just a couple of examples, formal legal security documents, so property title, so the lease, property documentation, the current use for crops, plantations, grazing, etc. So we are again in the land use, I don't know, random closest distance to residents. Here we check potential impacts on communities in the neighboring areas, etc. So there is a list of questions. They are divided into by topic. So land tenure and acquisition, community and social risks, biodiversity and siting sensitivity, so biodiversity basically, climate, and we will talk specifically about all those topics next week in the specific modules. Again, field card is a summary of like concrete things to do with in that section. And then, as we said before, final validation. So you have also here a consultation summary. So who you consulted. So you have annexes, list of individual that you consulted, and gender, question about gender, question about who you actually consulted, etc. So the tool is made in a way that you will have, if you follow it, you will have to document it anyways. So documentation is included in it, and then you have this document, and you can send it to your DFI as it is. As you filled it, it's done, and you can just, it's part of your ESG documentation and your and your DFI at the due diligence stage, or even in your first exchanges. You can already be quite not sure 100%, but 99% that you will cover all topics that they will require from you. So that's about the screening. Is there other questions that we don't? Yeah, about remote, you answered this question already, so no questions, additional. If you have any additional question, please feel free to write them in the chat. And so I continue. Do we have time for an exercise? Because we have 1 hour, 10 minutes remaining and quite a lot of topics to cover. I don't know, Anjali, what's your thought about it?
And I hope that we have quite a bit of interest from our participants, but I suggest we go through an exercise and then we go through the ESMS building blocks. And maybe if we then drop the health and safety, which will be addressed in any case in the subsequent trainings, that should for everybody. I mean, if there are no objections, we suggest to go through one more exercise, and then we will go through the structuring of the environmental and social management system to try and make it as simple and as practical as possible for you. So if there are if there are some people who would like to do it differently, please write in the chat. Otherwise, I think Gila will proceed with the exercise now.
So I can just present the exercise, like the context, and if you already have read it or are reading it and you want to start answering the questions in the chat, please feel free to do so. So here we are talking about a 250 kilowatt peak mini grid in a 600 households village in northern Mozambique. So it's a quarter of a hectare plot that is adjacent to the village. We have 3 families growing cassava on the land without title. So they're just using the land informally. There is a small stream running at 80 meters away from the site. And it's not, the site is not near any protected area, but speaking with authorities, you realize that the stream is considered sacred by the community who has customary land governance structures. And we're talking about a developer who has 8 sites in total and with a monthly portfolio revenue of $42,000.
Yes, sorry, Gina, you need to stop sharing and to reshare again because we're still on the toolkit document.
All right. Can you see the screening exercise?
Yes.
My apologies for that. So 200 kilowatt peak, 600 households village. So it's a small quarter of an hectare plot. 3 families grow cassava without formal title. Small stream of water running 80 meters away from the site. No official protected area, but you understand that the stream is considered sacred by the community, and they have customary land governance structures. Okay, and it's a 8 sites total developer with a monthly portfolio revenue of $42,000. So what are there are any? And what's the decision you make right away at screening level? And we can also already assess first risk category. So issues, go, no go, or what to do right away, and risk category would be the 3 questions. And we can do as before if I don't know, Anjali, with your approval, we can also have interactive, like verbal answers, not only in the chat.
Yes, definitely. I mean, take a few minutes to think about it. You can write a few things in the chat, but if there are some people, whether in French or in English, who would like to participate, please feel free to do so. It's also nice for us not to be the only ones talking all the time.
Does anyone want to maybe answer verbally? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. So if Mr. Longa, thank you for this answer. So indeed, so here we have multiple standards that are triggered, and you mentioned 5 and 8, which is case. 5 because of land tenure. So we are talking about those 3 families who grow cassava on the land. Even if they have no title, Yeah, so yes, indeed, 5 and 8. So even if they have no title, they will be affected by the project, and you will have to. So this triggers a sequence of actions to identify clearly who is using the land, and then from there, socioeconomic survey, consultation about how to compensate, with certain rules to follow to be compliant with the standard number 5, etc. So this is a whole process that is triggered just because of those 3 families. So that's, yeah, standard number 5, indeed. This we will talk about in module 3 next week. Then the stream that is considered as sacred, so by a community that have customary land governance structure. So here there are 2 issues. First one is indeed number 8, sacred site. So we have to see how the project would impact the river and the customer use of it. But also we don't know if this community is indigenous or not. So we have a doubt also on standard number 7. So here we have 5, 7, and 8. So we are in a case. So what would you do in this case? And what category?
Conditional go.
If you feel like building up on this, explaining what conditions and how you would proceed concretely from there. If you want, you can raise your hand in the also we can. Yes, that's okay. That's a point, very, very important. In French, we talk about peuple autochtone, so we don't use the word indigenous either. This will be addressed in module 2. What I can say is that this is one of the topics. I mean, all of the topics, but especially standard 5 and standard 7. So land tenure and population displacement and indigenous people. So those 2 topics, you have a wide variety of legislations and regulatory frameworks. Depending on the country, it will depend how the laws are, how land tenure is managed, what kind of land property exists, etc. So this is for standard 5, and for standard 7, does the law recognize indigenous people or some form of, and if so, does it correspond with the definition that is used by international standards? The common definition is given by a specific UN agency. So again, module 2 will develop on that. So because the law doesn't recognize them, doesn't mean that it's not taken into consideration by the international standards. So we have to consider that even if they are not recognized by law, they can still be considered as indigenous people under the international standards. So yeah, in general, so you more or less agree on the fact that there should be a condition, that it is a conditional go, considering the size. So this is a decision to be made. If we can find, so yeah, you could consider it a conditional go, but the fact that you have the indigenous people possibility, that is not sure. So it requires specialized assessment to make sure that you are not in this situation. But yeah, it requires a very strong consultation process and assessment. My recommendation would be to avoid the effort, because having to lead a compensation process, IP verification, if they are indigenous people or not, plus sacred. So and a sacred stream is a. So you would have to conduct a process of a consultation and consultation with the customary authorities, but also with the populations, to make sure that that the project doesn't affect at all the sacred site, or that there is a way that you can work with them in a way that is satisfying from the cultural and religious point of view. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of consultation work, and so is it worth it? Considering the revenue, do you have the time, resources to do it? So that's the again working with the financer. If you already have identified a financer, and if they can provide through technical assistance expertise on indigenous people, for example, etc., this can be also an additional element. Sorry. So about the list of internationally recognized IP, there is documentation and databases available. Not there is no recognized list that is like the reference that everyone uses. This would be ideal indeed if we had. So for biodiversity, we have IBAT, the tool I will present next week, where you know right away if there are areas of international interest. So this is you know if your site is there or not. For indigenous people, it's a very different and more complicated topic. And again, module 2 next week.
Okay. So really, thank you very much for all your active presentation. I think these are all very relevant questions that have been asked. I think one point that we must really keep in mind there is that 250 kilowatt peak is like, we are in a medium scale. I mean, not really very big, not really very small. The revenue is close to high, though not that high. So if we have such delicate issues, probably also something that one should look at very, very objectively is also to discuss with the funders that okay, I mean, this is probably an important area, but given all the sensitivities, maybe there should be some extra grants provided to accompany the whole process in a constructive and comprehensive way. For me, if I may pitch into the discussion, this is sort of the cautious view that I would take. Okay, so if we're done with this, given that we have just about an hour left, would you like to go through the ESMS now?
Yes, I was going to ask, but this maybe, is it a satisfying answer that we gave you? Because we didn't say yes or no. We sort of said yes to the conditional go, but we are more on the no side unless you have international support. Does it make sense to you, this kind of not full yes, not full no? Is it satisfying as an answer? Does it clarify things, or is it even more confusing? Hopefully not.
I saw a couple of thumbs up.
All right. Again, I don't see much here. Yeah. Okay, good. So we are moving on to the architecture. Yes. So yeah, no to you. Yeah, I would also say it's too risky, but then there is also, yeah, it's a subjective answer. So regarding the environmental and social management system, so it's the very first it's not. I mean, the screening toolkit tool is the one you will use for your site, but the architecture of your environmental and social management system is we created a tool, so tool 3.1 here, where you can that you can create at the very beginning of your activities, and we will look into it. So we talked about the screening checklist. Here we are here, ESMS manual, and if we have time, I don't think so, but otherwise we will talk about it in module 3 next week, the health, safety, environment, and social plan, which is more operational. So ESMS manual. I will. This is the opening block. So just so you have a bit of an overview, and the connected tools. It's basically all of them. Okay. So the other tools of the toolkit that you will use in connection with the ESMS is it's the central backbone tool of your environmental and social management system. Something we haven't mentioned in the opening block, you have for the life of the document, so who drafts it, who validates it, who implements this tool, and who reviews it, and at which frequency. So here we give, those are recommendations. If you don't have an ENS manager, so it will be the person who is the equivalent of that in your structure, so who will draft the document. So it's validated by project director and your financer's project officer. Implemented by ENS manager or whoever corresponds in your structure, and the review also, so every 6 months. And the drafting and validation happen before construction starts. Yeah. So this is the World Bank's approach that is commonly used on environmental and social management systems. We saw already before in Anjali's presentation the PDCA acronym, which stands for Plan, Do, Check, and Act. So plan is what you do. All of this needs to be done before construction starts. So it's all the policies, procedures, screenings we talked about, etc., that you will prepare. So everything is ready for your project to be developed following environmental and social, in compliance with environmental and social law and international standards. Do is implementing your environmental and social procedures. And check and act is monitoring environmental and social performance and reviewing your plans. So it's not a linear sequence. It's a cycle, that's a continuous cycle. You keep updating and improving your environmental and social documentation based on your environmental and social results, performance, and observations, but also the evolution of your project, because you will include new sites, new resources, etc. The structure of your ESMS, it's this basic structure: policy and commitment. So we will look at more detail at a few of those, but so environmental and social policy and commitment from so at a high level management of your structure. Risk identification. So this is what we do with the ESG screening tool. Management programs. So for each identified risk, we develop management procedures. So this is the HSES management plan mostly, and this we will go into detail, if not today, in module 3. Organizational capacity and budget allocation. So what resources you dedicate to implementing your environmental and social management system. This is essential and avoids a lot of overcosts or unforeseen costs in the future, and also ensures that you have the resources allocated to actually implement the plans that you set to implement. Sorry. And emergency preparedness, which is cross a requirement that goes beyond all sectors. That is always something that is always required. So as you can see, risk identification, we talked about already, ESG screening tool, but otherwise everything else here: policy and commitment, management programs, organizational capacity, budget allocation, and emergency preparedness, they are all in tool 3.1, which is the ESMS manual that I will present now. And management programs, the operational procedures that you will develop, we regroup them in the HSES plan. So this is what we present today. Then on the do side, implementation. So you have the all the tools that are, so maybe I go back to the list of tools. So here, all those tools here: stakeholder engagement, okay, 2.1 to 2.4, and all those tools here, which are the operational procedures, etc. So all of those are on the do side of things. So this is what 2.1 to 3.4, yeah. So implementing all the procedures and stakeholder engagement. So this we talk about in module 2 next week, and this modules 2 and 3 next week. Okay, so the do is basically our modules 2 and 3, and the check and act, especially the monitoring. This will be for module 4 next week. No, the week after. Sorry. So for module 4. But when you talk about environmental and social management system, if you understand this structure, you understand everything. You have it all, and if you follow this this pathway, you are compliant with international standards. And a little thing is, once you have built the SMS for one site, you duplicate it and adapt it to all your other sites. So this is something that it's worth the effort, even at the very beginning, to start. I see that there is a hand raised.
Yes, I just want to double check. You mentioned that we have to set up one ESMS manual for each site. Is it possible like set up one ESMS for a portfolio or for the company, like having one big ESMS and then duplicate it for each site, or just having that one ESMS? Thanks.
Excellent question. This is really up to you. So maybe we could rephrase this: build it once, use it for every site. What you build is the structure. So you identify all your risks and how it will work, and then you can adapt it to the other sites. But yes, you can have one ESMS for every site, but you need to have procedures that are adapted to each site. For example, a very obvious example, emergency preparedness, you would have your emergency response plan, which will be, for small sites, it's a one-pager, really, with very basic, we'll talk about it later, and you have emergency contacts. So you have to, of course, this document, you have to adapt it to your site to put the right person, right contact, etc. But whatever applies across sites, yes, it can be one document, and it's indeed more efficient to do it that way. So on that, there is no rule. The document the ESMS manual, as we created it, should allow you to make it for multiple sites. And then we will look next week at the HSES management plan, which will then you will probably, depending on the procedures, you can have procedures that are cross sites. For example, batteries end of life, the batteries and solar panel end of life management. You can have one procedure at cluster level if it's in the same country, for example, and you will follow the same chain. You have the same suppliers and the same recycling facilities at the end. Then you can have one procedure for the whole cluster. It doesn't make sense to have one procedure per site. So it is indeed you adapt to the situation. Does this answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Gillian.
Thank you. So this slide is a screenshot from the ESMS manual. I will not project the Word document. It's not necessary because we have the list here, and then I will present some of the elements in a bit more detail. So we have 6 components that we have here. Policy and commitment. So it was point number 1 of our plan section. Identification, which was point number 2 of environmental and social risk and impacts. Management programs, which was point number 3, etc. So it follows the structure that we have here. Yeah. So emergency preparedness, and here in 6 we have stakeholder engagement and the grievance redress mechanism. But those so in the ESMS, you have generalities, but then you have a separate template where you will actually develop your stakeholder engagement plan, because this is an essential document that has its own life and that is updated also continuously. So so this is the structure we suggest for the ESMS manual. So I will go into some of those sections here. First of all, the environmental and social policy. So the rules are, it has to be signed at a high level, like to show commitment from the highest level of the company or of your structure. It has to cover explicitly the whole project life cycle from site identification to decommissioning. It has to be aligned with both international standards and the national law. There is one thing that I haven't mentioned and should have, which is really important to understand, and there were questions related to that. To be compliant with any international standard, African Development Bank, IFC, World Bank, etc., you have to be compliant with the national law. So there is no international compliance in illegality. You have to. So the national law is the basic for any of the. You have to be compliant fully with the national law, and from there, you will have additional requirements to comply with international standards. But the national law is always the floor for you from which to build on your environmental and social compliance. So yeah, aligned with international standards and national law. This we will go into the details in the next modules of which standards for which topic and etc. The environmental and social policy commits resources, so it has to name who is responsible for environmental and social management. CLO, this is an acronym we will see a lot in module 2, community liaison officer. So it's the person who or persons who will manage the relation with the community locally. Depending on your structure, the place, etc., it can be a variety of different people how do you say? Yeah, where the person comes from and how they are hired, etc., is quite. There is quite a variety. Usually, the recommendation is to have. It might seem obvious, but someone who is from the village or from the area. A CLO can cover several villages or be or only one or etc. So there is a variety, but this is an essential piece of your human resources. It can also be someone who is also an engineer or a commercial employee, etc. And so the resources, yeah, and commit also to a review cycle. The environmental and social policy, and this is crucial to understand, is extended to primary contractors and suppliers. So whatever project we have, according to international standards, I am responsible for the environmental and social practices of my contractors and primary suppliers. So yeah, this is important because we'll see it in the supplier screening for solar panels and batteries. So this we talk about in module 3, and also for your construction suppliers. So you are responsible, even if you contract a company to do the work, you can't say that any labor law violation or that is under their responsibility is under yours, because it is your site, so you are responsible for the project and the practices on them. And the environmental and social policy must be disclosed. So on the site physically, to communities, obviously to your financer, etc. This is a piece of documentation that is required by international standards and by all financiers. You need to have an environmental and social policy, and that really signed at a high level, and that really commits to actions and resources. Yeah, I don't know. This should be a bit more. So management programs translate. We are talking now about management programs. They translate identified risks into mitigation actions, and each action will have a named person with a timeline and a budget. So it's every management program will follow also this PDCA cycle. So policy, risk identification, developing mitigation measures, assigning responsibilities. This is here, we will look at it. Then implement the management plans, train the staff on them, engage the communities. Then the check part is to monitor the implementation, collect field data, etc., and act, adjust the procedures, and repeat, and mitigate any non-compliance that you identify. So there is so this we will talk more in detail also in module 2, because it goes also with the stakeholder engagement plan. But in terms of the responsibilities for who does what, you can use the matrix. So this is also in the format, in the ESMS format. So you will have the format there, and it's easy to fill up. Who is responsible for the task? Who is accountable for it? So responsible is who actually carries it out. Accountable is at the higher level who will be who has the ultimate accountability on the action. Support staff and people who is consulted, so who provides inputs on the action, and who needs to be informed of the action. So yeah, so this is provided in the tool, and how you can present in a very clear way to your financer how every program is implemented concretely. Yeah, so those are examples of who does what. Once again, so I don't know if I go in the detail, just maybe quickly. So at a higher level, project management or company management, who leads implementation from above. So policy development has the ultimate accountability and responsibility on the policy and its implementation, makes go or no-go decisions, and receives incident reports, and so the sites will report to them and as decision-making tools. So now I will just go through for level 1. So for the really basic staff that are required. Health, safety, environmental, and social focal person. So someone at the level of the site or the group who is responsible for procedures, development, update, implementation. So this doesn't need to be a full-time. In most smaller developers, it's not a full-time position. It's usually an operational staff who also has this HACS hat. It's also the HACS management task can be divided between different operatives. So, for example, project manager can take in charge policies and incidents monitoring of follow-up, while the technical or commercial manager or staff can do the monitoring, reporting, community engagement, trainings, etc. So this is depending on your structure. The HACS focal person can be the HACS responsibilities can be one person divided, full-time, part-time, etc. It's for you to evaluate the required time and your internal capacities. And you can also have a time-based consultant to support you in this process, to oversee and to train. So on a regular basis, for example, or to initiate certain processes. So this can be actually a quite safe, even if it's a cost on the moment, it can also save a lot of time and bring your staff up to level. Community liaison officer, we talked about it already. Yeah, this we will address in module 2. I think there will be much more detail about this. Just the commercial team being in the contact of the clientele and having to go around and knowing what's going on the field can be quite an asset for that. So your CLO can be part of the commercial team, or can be one member of it, or etc.
Yeah.
There's a mistake here. The construction contractor should be here. It's the HSCS focal person, just to say that the construction contractor should have their own focal point for HSC issues. So this sentence here should be here. Yeah. So
Gila, if I may just jump in a little bit over here, I think to summarize what Gila is driving at is that when we don't have a dedicated ENS staff, the idea is that all your operational staff, your construction team, your project manager, your technical manager can be trained onto the basics of environmental, social, and governance management. And we'll see through the templates, monitoring templates that we propose, that the whole idea is that then, you know, the normal monitoring and the normal work that your staff is asked to do could very well integrate all the criteria and the requirement of ESG, putting in place ESG and monitoring, and it can be really a win-win situation. And we really hope that the tools that we have prepared over here could help. The full-time manager actually helps in this check act side of things, because he will have more time to train all your staff and to review the documents, as we said earlier. So maybe, Gila, what we can say, because we have just about half an hour left, is that we also feel that human resources can really be proportionate to the size of your site and to the requirements of ESG. And it's just because of this situation, you know, in the case studies that we came up with, that, I mean, yeah, we sort of really agree with you that the last case study we looked at, either we don't do it or we have dedicated resources, because otherwise it's just too expensive. So, Gila, I don't know what we want to go through now in the full ESMS, but I was thinking that really going through the monitoring side of things, no? The monitoring, reporting, and adjusting, that is something which will be useful. And then that we try and discuss the synergies between impact of mini-grids and ESG monitoring. Unless you want to add a couple of points. Yeah.
No, just that monitoring is planned on module 4, so we don't have slides for it here.
So it's just, sorry, it's your slide 44, just the last one.
Ah, yeah, okay.
This one I meant, yeah.
Yes, okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, actually, yeah, there was a little, so this is an introduction.
A bit of a teaser.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, true, sorry. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so about monitoring. So this is a big question for developers, and because every financer especially impacts investors, for example, or they will have different, they will want to report on different impacts, and they will need different ways you to fill different sets of indicators, or they will have their own templates ready, and we need you to fill certain indicators at certain formats. I would like to tell you we have the one format for everyone and everything, and unfortunately no, it's not yet the case. It's an ongoing conversation to try to reach a certain degree of harmonization across platforms, financiers, etc., but it's not yet the case. So what the AfDB and the IFC, with the work we conducted, will propose is a template that covers, that gives a reference of, a complete reference of indicators for the different levels of reportings, monitorings that you will have to conduct. So the monitoring, reporting, so you have different layers of it. So here, for example, we have like an example of reporting schedule. So weekly during construction phase, so safety check on a weekly basis. On a monthly basis, you will review your update your indicators and review your grievance log, so from your grievance redress mechanism. On a quarterly review, you will prepare an environmental and social progress report to your investors. And this will include a review. So ESAP is Environmental and Social Action Plan. So this is what comes with the due diligence. So your financier at the due diligence stage the auditor will produce this ESAP, which is the list of non-compliance that need to be addressed for the financer to actually to go into financing. So you will update on the status of what you do on those recommendations. So this is the quarterly report to investors, and then annually the ENS environmental and social performance reports to the lenders and to review of the gender action plan and review of the environmental and social management plan. So those are different layers, often conducted by different staff also, because the internal construction safety check is operational at ground level by whoever is responsible for HSES management. KPI update, ENS progress report, it can be done, it's more it's desk work consolidated, so it can be your HSES responsible, but it will often be the either your environmental and social focus person or an operational person. I mean, it depends on the structure and how you. So this is so those the different layers of reporting. So the reporting tool that will be presented to you in module 4, you have one template for each level of reporting and monitoring. And here we give some examples of core key performance indicators. So for level 1, smaller developers, reporting on. So those are impacts, positive impact indicators. So number of active connections, numbers of jobs created, follow-up of. Well, now we are in it's not impact anymore. It's performance, grievance raised and resolved, and women's share in consultation. So gender KPIs, safety performance indicators. So again, in the reporting tool, you will have a battery of reporting indicators that is much more detailed than this one, and the GHG emissions avoided, so the greenhouse gases emissions avoided for the environmental side. So this is a very basic set of KPIs, but again, in the tool, we will have a more developed one. For higher size, bigger size developers, quarterly, in terms of reporting, quarterly internal ESMS audits, so quarterly reporting on the implementation of the environmental and social management system, external independent audits for category B+ projects, so that can be once every 2 years, once a year, depending on the financer's decision. Supply chain monitoring reports if required by the financer, etc. So all of this will be again talked about in module 4. But especially on that, and this is this red frame here, as I said before, if you follow those tools, you should be compliant with most finances requirements, but especially for reporting, make sure that you're in line with your finances requirements, because as of the situation now, they all have different KPIs, key performance indicators, and formats, and etc. Just a couple of additional things, and then I hand the microphone over to you, Anjali. It is recommended to report on your performance and your impact to the community. So not to forget to also this aspect of community engagement, to that part of the reporting is in that direction. And especially if there are changes in the project, and also and especially about grievance redress, the grievance redress mechanism, and you have several stakeholders you have reportings to try to, and this is obvious, but to align and to create formats that align with everyone's. But this is a lot of work, and we are conscious of it, and it's this is one of the trickiest aspects of ESG management. When it comes to finances and stakeholders' expectations. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Guylain. While developing all these toolkits and guidebook, we did extensive interviews with developers like yourselves and also the financing community. And one of the very important or key bottlenecks that arose was that the developers were saying, well, listen, if we have 2 or 3 co-financiers, we end up with different requirements in terms of reporting, and then we really don't know what to do. So, the conclusion we basically came up with, and that's why we propose these reporting templates, is that it's really worth it, we feel, for developers and operators to stand your own ground and to say, well, look, we know that you have your requirements, but you must also make it feasible for us. So let's all sit together and come up with a common reporting template that will serve your purpose and will also serve our purpose. So it's basically in this perspective that we try to elaborate this toolkit. And if you have the time to go through it, we would very much appreciate your comments also on the reporting one, which will be presented in detail, as Guylain said, during the 4th session. At this junction, we will try basically and present a couple of very summary concluding slides, and also ask you a little bit for your feedback, because we've been together for close to 4 hours now, which is quite a long time, I must say. Maybe, Guylain, you can just move on to the next slide. You see, the message that we have tried to bring across today is that achieving good impact for your mini grid and risk mapping is basically 2 sides of the same coin. You see, we want to achieve energy access and reliability for households. So it goes along with, a number of these performance standards that we've been talking about. We want to achieve income generation, business enablement, and all our stakeholder engagement does help. Improved health services, which is also the social impact that we're after, better education, gender benefits, which is really a cross-cutting ESG focus that Gila has insisted upon also. You want to achieve local employment, supply chain development, which is also what the ESG system is all after. And greenhouse gas savings, which is another aspect. Well, if our ENS processes are weak, we've seen that the risk of land disputes leading to cost overruns and to project failure become higher. The same stands for community conflicts, because with community conflicts, well, vandalism, refusal to connect will definitely happen if there are community level conflicts which appear around our mini-grid as well. Exclusion of women often is correlated with lower demand and poor payment culture. I mean, there are a few studies which do show that women being involved in business development really is a help in global sustainability. We definitely want to reduce safety incidents, so all the ESG processes and reporting does help regarding that. If we fail to identify vulnerable groups, we will not use the word IPs. I do understand the sensitivities regarding that. Well, the financing may be blocked and it may lead to later conflicts in the project itself. E-waste accumulation is not desirable for environmental purposes, but can also lead to regulatory penalties. Worker and social health incidents, environmental and health incidents are really things that we don't want to see happening, and we don't want our site to close. So there really are synergies between impact, sustainability, and basically all this risk assessment. So Gila, we can skip the next two slides and go to slide 54 directly now. Yep. So we tried to summarize over here the key messages that we think we kept coming back to in terms of the synergies between impact and sustainability and ESG. First of all, the proportionality is not a compromise, it is the design. We saw this through the case studies. There's absolutely no point in going for mini grids which seem to show that they will trigger these difficult PSs at a cost that is just not sustainable, unless, as we said, there's a really good reason and there's the funding that goes with it. So what we're striving for is basically that ENS should not be just a compliance exercise. You know, to be honest, well, Gina is the ESG specialist. I'm more on the mini-grid side. So it is true that often, you know, when you're on the mini-grid side, you say, oh no, I have to go through this ENS exercise. I just have to tick so many boxes. It's so costly. Well, in looking at it in a different way, if we really do it intelligently and in a proportionate way, it really builds onto the sustainability and the long-term viability of the whole project. So projects that skip it at a lower demand, it can lead to lower demand, community conflict, and lender withdrawal. So we don't want that. Early screening, this we went through our screening toolkit, is really our cheapest risk management tool. And we do appreciate the point that was made, you know, saying, well, do I really have to go to the site because, you know, it's expensive, etc., because before I reach financial close? Well, once again, if we have the slightest sense that there may be an issue, it will end up being cheaper going to check out the site than having the you know, going for it and then ending up with big problems and higher costs. It's very important to listen to what the community, the beneficiaries, but also the wider community has to say right at the start when we do project identification, to bring the whole community along with us, because we're talking rural development, we're talking impact, we're talking social impact. So the message you're trying to bring across in trying also to make this guidebook and these toolbooks, understandable. We do appreciate that the African Development Bank operational standards and the IFC Performance Standards, originally they were written for extremely large-scale projects with high environmental and social impacts. So of course they're not applicable as per se to our mini grids. And we feel that the donors, IFC and AfDB have come together to fund this initiative, are really becoming cognizant of this. So we hope that the toolkits that we've developed will help you, and it should not be seen just as an audit. Even partial consistent application of these ESG principles definitely is a contribution, and it's better than doing nothing. If we document, if we are systematic, it's probably, putting us on a nice pathway to sustainability. I don't know, Gila, whether you want to add a few things at this point, but the chat is really open for any comments and further discussions, because at this point we just have one more, let's say, exercise or contribution that we will ask you for, which is basically a little bit of a feedback after these close to 4 hours that we've spent together. Gila, would you like to add something at this point?
No, I think it was enough of my voice for today. No, it's, I think, yeah, there was quite a lot of information, and I really hope it's helpful, and especially that the tools that we developed are helpful, and it's really important that we have as much feedback on them as possible, because you are the ones who will be using them. So it's really any feedback for us to make them as good as possible is more than welcome.
So maybe we can just go to the next slide. It's just the next one is just a cleaned up, yes, it's just a colorful version of the same. So if you don't mind, dear colleagues, would you agree to go through the similar exercise as we did at the start? And be honest about it. We tried to, first of all, maybe we can start with the second question, which is, this whole screening approach that we proposed for small mini grids. Would you say that you find the screening approach probably not useful? This is number one, all the way up to you think that you will definitely try to apply it. Could you please kindly into the chat put a score for this question number 2 regarding the screening approach, whether you find it not useful or hugely useful, between 1 and 5. Okay, well, thank you very much for this feedback. If we can have a few more regarding your confidence in navigating the ESMS toolkit, that would be helpful as well. Well, wonderful. I mean, if okay. Wonderful. Really, thank you very much for this, because I must say that when we were racking our brains with Gila working on this and having a number of arguments, to be very honest, but we are still friends. It wasn't easy to find something practical, and we are happy that you sort of endorse this screening approach. Thank you very much for that. We do understand that this ESMS toolkit is not necessarily, I mean, the whole ESMS process is not something that is necessarily very easy to digest just as one point of the 4-hour session. But yeah, if you have the time, please go through the toolkit, and any feedback on that would really be appreciated. Maybe we can go to questions 4 and 5 now. Has today's session, in a way, changed your perception of environmental, social, and governance compliance as a practical tool? Has it changed your perception, like not at all, partially, or definitely yes? And thank you all for the answers that I see coming up now on the questions 1 and 2. Okay, good. We're really appreciative of the fact that you can see that it can be useful. I mean, I really hope, and I mean, I do believe, I don't know whether Gabrielle still is on the call from the African Development Bank, but we also feel that various, multilateral funding agencies, bilateral funding agencies now are realizing that they can have a proportionate approach while not compromising on, the principles of ESG. So yeah, I hope that this is really a step in the right direction, and appreciate your appreciation. Thank you very much for that. Maybe just very quickly, maybe it's a bit of an ambitious one to ask you right now. You can even contribute verbally if you would prefer. You know what the modules 2 to 4 now are all about. Module 2 will be more around all, let's say, the human and social aspects like stakeholder engagement, grievance mechanisms, environmental health and safety. Session 3 will be more on land displacement, population displacement, land biodiversity, etc., etc. And number 4 will be more on all the reporting aspects. So is there, based on this introductory session, the first one that we had today, a specific theme that you would like us to focus on more specifically? Because we are more than happy to convey to our colleagues and ourselves, focus on what you think is of most importance. Okay. Yeah, interesting. It's true that community consultation, I think there are some principles, Gila, and we definitely should ask Marine, who's going to lead the session, to really focus on the principles of community consultation, because to be honest, being more, let's say, on the more technical side of demand assessment, we do our sampling plan to do a demand assessment, to assess capacity to pay and stuff like that. But we don't necessarily have the entry point of, good practice regarding community consultation. So I think, these kind of entry points, because we do engage with communities as mini-grid practitioners, but we don't necessarily have this angle of, as you said, free prior informed consent. We don't have this in our mindset when we go and engage with the communities as a mini-grid developer. So if you have more comments or questions that come later, please don't hesitate. Yeah, low literacy rates. Okay, that's also an important point. Okay, very important. So I think that with this, we've come to an end to our session, and we are more or less bang on time, I should say. So, we can just show the next slide. It just gives you a quick view of what the next, what we covered today and what the next themes are all about, but we've talked about that enough. I don't think we need to repeat it. You have it all here in front of you. We just have a problem, I think, with the numbering of our toolkits. I think ESMS toolkit is 3.1 and screening toolkit must be 1.1 or something like that. But it doesn't really matter. You'll find them in your whole module. So yeah, with this, cultural gender barrier. Okay, very important. As a matter of fact, Marine Cornelis, who's going to lead the next session, she's a, stakeholder engagement human resource specialist, but very much a gender specialist. So yeah, she'll be, I think, more than happy to come up with examples and her own experience regarding these aspects. Very good. So with this, may I just, as we say goodbye to each other and see you next week, I will unfortunately not be with you next week, but I will be there for the 4th session. Gila will be with you next week as well. Maybe we could ask, we can stop sharing our screen and I can ask all of you just to, for a few seconds, to open your cameras so we can just greet each other and stop talking just to a screen. That would be much appreciated. And with that, we really wish all of you a very nice evening and thank you once again very much for your active participation. Very, very much appreciated. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.